So thank you so much. Let me just introduce who the Wine Bay Community Benefit Society is just now. So we've got myself, I'm Tom Young, we have Ronnie Mann, who's our secretary. We have David Miller, who's here taking membership. He is our treasurer. We have Ian Hook, who is somewhere, hello Ian, and Callum Monteith, who is in Liverpool working on a ferry for us all. We're the trustees and the founding members, and we all, I'm hoping, well, a lot of you already joined, but we're hoping to get the rest of your extended family, if they're resident, might be joined up today as well. I'll pass on to Ronnie, who's going to talk about why we're here.
Before I start, can I introduce Donna? Donna was appointed by Plunkett and Co. Plunkett and Co. being the vehicle we used to set up the society. We have in effect just been copying everything Lochranza did. Theirs is so successful, they got 440,000, in other words 100% of the purchase price of Lochranza in, and they managed to raise another $500,000 on top of that. So it's a small community of Lochranza, sure that we can do the same when in actual fact our hotel is 3 times the size and it's less than half the price. So I'm going to just say, why are we here? We're here because we don't want a McLaren in the village of White Bay. We basically are at a stage, I believe, where the commercial market for it is pretty well exhausted. I don't feel that anybody else is going to buy it with a view to spending the money it's required to return it into the hotel or whatever that we'd like to see. So, in effect, we as a community, and through the Benefit Society, and Tom will explain more about that later, have access to unbelievable amounts of money. Now I say that because the people I've spoken to, who basically are Democratic Finance Scotland, Scottish Land Fund and Lottery Heritage Fund, have all said it's an excellent scheme, more power to your elbow. Let me explain a wee bit further. Democratic Finance would only finance, to be honest, the initial surveys and feasibility, or in other words, the initial costings to save the building. Scottish Land Fund would normally help with a stage 1, which is to pay for all the surveys that are required, up to 30,000, and thereafter basically you have National Lottery, who have up to 5 million per project towards effectively saving the heritage elements of it. However, I digress a wee bit. Basically, you probably all are aware, looking around the faces, in the 80s we had 8 licensed premises and over 100 service bedrooms in the village. And the place was jumping. We were effectively the entertainment capital of Arran. People bussed in from around the island. By 2025, we discover we have 1 pub, no harm to talk, open 3 nights a week. Coffee Pot shut yesterday. Kai Restaurant at Burlington shut at the beginning of November. Arran Thai shut in October. I don't know, Ian, can you tell me how Shore's getting on for the winter?
They are going to open a few days a week.
Yeah. So I mean, the drastic change in less than 40 years is remarkable. So we feel that in actual fact, and to be honest, the reason we formed the Benefit Society initially was this major project, to save our hotel, save our Victorian building that is of some considerable note, and in effect, as I say, the initial reaction I'm getting from all the funding bodies is positive. To the tune that I have to lodge 3 quotes from 6 different disciplines by next Friday in order to get up to 30,000 to pay for all the surveys that are required. Timing, however, is an issue. Later on I'll go on to just exactly where we're at. But the Scottish Land Fund is, whilst allowing this stage 1 application for up to 30,000, cannot let us go forward because they're frozen till after the Scottish elections. So in other words, we're right back to potentially September next year before we can actually access Scottish Land Fund purchase price money. So as I say, I'll come back afterwards and just try and see where we're at financially, what can we do, how can we protect it, because you're possibly aware that the London Auction House has it back on the market on the 11th of December. The current owner, Sam, paid $304,000 for it. He's put it back on at $275,000. I think he's reaching desperate stages. Tom, I think if I'm right, he got 6 months rates free as an empty building.
Well, the council can't obviously discuss individual rates for properties. However, it's got a rateable value such that they'll have an annual bill of £18,000 a year, and they get 3 months with 50% relief, unless it has a building warrant on it, and there is no building warrant on it. So we can only assume that they are either being chased by the council for substantial rates bills, or are paying £1,500 a month just for the privilege of owning it. So we can only imagine they're quite keen to get rid of it.
I'll come back to that one if I can later, and what we might be able to do about that. But Tom, can I get you over to give us the benefits of society?
So as Ronnie said, we kind of look for the best vehicle for tackling this project, and that is a community benefit society. Now, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what a community benefit society is. It's maybe a little bit dry, but it's kind of important that you do know, and at least know where to find information in the future. The model is very much a hybrid between a PLC, like a publicly traded company, and a community society like Improvements or something like that. It is designed that the society makes a profit in its endeavours, but those profits must always be redirected back into the community, or in their projects, its own projects, or into improvements or hall projects or anything, as long as it's within our postcode. So although the aims are to make a profit, and we are able to own assets, purchase assets, they're always locked into the community. So in the event of the society buying Cooridoon and then everybody abandoned ship, the asset would still remain within community groups if possible, and only in the worst case scenarios would it ever be sold into private ownership again. So it works kind of very much the PLC side of things is the membership and the ownership. Those that have signed up and paid their pound, you are now a shareholder in the Waiting Bay Community Benefit Society. You have a particular type of share, it's called a community share. That's all that we're offering at the moment for those that are resident within the postcode area. And in the future we will offer, should the project go ahead, a supporters share, and that is when people can buy a £25 share in multiples, and they can be from anywhere, so it can be yourselves, or it can be people from all over the world can buy supporters shares, and that's where we're able to raise a huge amount of money potentially for the village, and then have that match funded by Scottish Land Fund, National Lottery Heritage Fund. One of the key things that we need out today is for you to understand that our membership, it must always be 50% plus village residents. So if we, in the future, we have an issue of the fundraising shares, we will only ever be able to accept a certain amount based on the percentage of local membership paying their pound and being involved. So if we don't get yourselves and your extended family that are one of the 600 people registered to vote in the village, then we're always going to be limiting ourselves as to what we can achieve, the amount of money we can raise, and the amount of money then that will get match funded in the future. Your membership share entitles you to a one person, one vote, so we're all equal kind of members, no matter how much anyone donates in the future, buys supporter shares, you're always only ever entitled to one vote per person. and there are other things that the society can do in the future that maybe the improvements of the hall or whatever don't want to take on, but obviously we as the kind of trustees setting it up are very much focused on just this for right now, but it is a vehicle that you can use for future purposes that you might think is suitable for the society. There is a very difficult to get through legal document on our website. It is well worth reading to kind of understand the processes of the society and the restrictions that we operate under the Financial Conduct Authority. Yeah, it's worth reading if you've got the time. All right, I'll pass it back to Ronnie to talk about the actual what our current kind of plan is.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Tom, we managed to get a small community council grant of 860. That effectively paid for the registration, which was 666. Why that number, I have no idea. That effectively allowed us to become registered after some months and some shenanigans, basically where the Financial Conduct Authority did ask an awful lot of questions, which we answered satisfactorily, obviously, and we became registered on the 24th of September. The 24th of September is therefore really the start date for the whole process, and we've done really quite well already. And as I say, this turnout is very rewarding. The number of apologies that Tom has received on top of that gives us a nice warm feeling. Where are we at? As I mentioned earlier, I have got to lodge by the 30th of November our application for Stage 1 finance, which would pay for all the various surveys that are required. Now that means a building survey, especially with regards to roofs, gutters and downpipes. It requires an M&E survey, a fire survey, a lift survey, a damp survey, an asbestos survey, and I've got to gather 3 quotes for each and every one of these. I'm glad to say I'm very, very nearly there. Where the missing bit in the form that I have to fill in is membership. I've got to fill in the number of registered members. A population of 600, I would suggest that membership number has to be over 200 for us to be taken really seriously and therefore accepted as a body that is representing the community. David's still typing away merrily. We're past the 100 mark formally, and we have a considerable number of people that have expressed support but haven't yet got around to either going online and paying their £1 and giving their info, or effectively picking up a form. The forms are available in the post office and along in the shop at the end of the village.
And in the pub, Ronnie.
And of course in the pub.
And the golf club.
And golf club as well, yes, that was last night, I forgot that one. So how do we raise this kind of money? All these funding bodies look towards the community providing 10%. At this stage, we don't know how much this whole project may end up costing, but it could be into the millions, and we'll have to raise basically that 10% ourselves. Tom mentioned the supporter shares. They are also obviously open to be purchased by community shareholders. The penny, if you think you're getting off with £1, you're not on the right wavelength. But anyway, I spoke just yesterday evening with basically Democratic Finance, and Katie said, the reason I'm saying this is we have actually been already approached by people that are living on the mainland said, could we join as a member? I said, no, you can't join as a community member, but you can theoretically become a member if you buy 10 shares at £25. They have been back in touch with us saying £1,500.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I asked Katie on the phone, can we start taking this money for our shares? And she said, there's nothing to stop you technically, but it would be bad practice. You really need your prospectus, you need your conditions, so that everybody's very clear on where and what goes. She said, however, there is nothing to stop you starting a crowdfunding exercise. And that basically is where we're at. What's liable to happen? As I say, I don't think there's a commercial enemy out there that is going to buy this and spend the money to return it to the business that we would hope is for the main benefit of the community. We want meeting rooms, we want treatment rooms for local therapists. Basically, we want another restaurant, but most of all, we want another 20 odd rooms which are en suite and are going to attract additional visitors who would spend within the village. I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to try and, in effect, the crowdfunding issue. I asked Katie, if we were indeed getting donations, which what crowdfunding is, could we at a later date say that these donations are converted into share capital? And the answer is there's nothing to stop us doing that. How do we secure the premises? I think this is going to be part of the discussion we'll have to have later. Do we pay a deposit to the existing owner and say, like, we need 12 months to raise the purchase price? Do we offer to lease it in order to effectively again stop it being sold to somebody that may indeed probably want to demolish it and build luxury houses? As I say, I think that's a discussion point that maybe we have some views that will come from the body of the meeting. But I think I've rambled enough. I'd very much like to introduce Donna. Donna McCardle was a consultant appointed by Plunkett, in other words, Plunkett paid her for just 2 days. Now, Donna has already put an awful lot more than 2 days' work into this, in actual fact, and she's come from Bathgate this morning and is not charging us because she's excited about the project and she has a vast amount of experience in community project. Donna, the floor is yours.
Is it still morning? Good morning. Thank you very much for coming. As Ronnie said, although I've only been given 3 days to work on this project, my background is I've been the owner of running quite a number of community businesses, community benefit societies. So I came to this work with Plunkett with a background of knowing the difference it makes and just a wonderful sense of community that it creates to have to develop a community business and community ownership. What happens is that at the moment I've done business health checks, but at the moment I've been given quite a lot of people that want to start this journey. So when Ronnie got in touch and they gave me the kind of brief of where they were, one of the first things I wanted to say, sorry, I will read from some notes as well, was that it was a valued local asset that risked being lost without intervention. It was a key statement for me because, you know, it was a hotel, it became a nursing home, and as Ronnie said, whoever buys it, because of the kind of price of land or Arran, etc., it's far more likely that someone's going to purchase this building and demolish it and build luxury flats. But for me, I think the whole concept of taking on this building, and again, it's not a short journey, community ownership or asset transfer, but to know that you will to take on this enterprise and then as a community come together to make it work, and it would be staged, obviously, because it's not just purchasing it, it's the amount of money invested, needing to invest in it, getting it up to purpose. So, I mean, when it comes to things like the shares, quite often a share issue or a brochure, or when shares eventually are launched, that the money that will be made by this business will probably have to be reinvested into the business for at least the first 13 years to get it to be running and then making profit. But any profit, as Tom said, would always go back into the community. So this business will always run with the view that any surplus will be reinvested into the community as a whole. So I think that's a really wonderful thing to do. One of the things I wanted to write down was that, you know, the project moved forward in a measured way. You know, the trustees got in touch with the Plunkett, they've done all the right things, they've done all the right research, and, you know, they've now registered as a community benefit society, and several strengths. So one of the things I had to do with them was an action plan to sort of say, right, where are you starting, where are you now, and this is an action plan that's updated. Part of that action plan was creating a communication plan, which is basically community mapping, which was done very thoroughly by this collection of people, so they know who's out there, who they're meant to be talking to, and they've also listed lots of other people they want to get involved. The other thing that is the possibility for me is this is getting local people involved and having a very robust volunteer management plan, which it's not necessary at this point of view, but it's, they've taken that on board and they want to do that properly as well and create a good system to let people come and get involved and help. So basically, for me, that shows that they've done this in a measured way, that they are, they're taking a very informed, responsible approach, and they're building a project based on data, community insight, and a realistic delivery. As Ronnie said, they have been Democratic Finance used to be called Community Shares Scotland. They've only recently changed into the name, so that maybe sounds a bit more useful. But Community Shares Scotland were set up by the Scottish Government, as were DTAS, to support community business. And Scotland's way ahead of England and has, the Community Empowerment Bill that was passed nearly 20 years ago, the Scottish Land Fund, it was all set up to support communities to take on ownership of buildings that were valuable to them, which obviously Cooridoon is. When you look at all the principles of what will be done with this business, it aligns with community empowerment, place-based economic development, reducing rural isolation, because I'm sure you all know, if you're involved with any group, any of the community things going on, there's a lot of isolation, especially at this time of year. So for people to be able to know, I think to have it was basically mentioned at the start, there's all of these businesses now shutting for the summer, and not really restricted access for people, whereas Cooridoon long term, once it was up and functional, it would be a 24/7 business that would run, that would provide opportunities. As Ronnie said, therapy rooms, event spaces, rooms generally, restaurant. And also, the other big side of a community business is it provides opportunities for training. So something like setting up relationships with the highest, with schools in Arran, with doing training for young people, retaining young people on the island for summer work, winter, things like that. So I think there's a lot of, there's so many pluses to doing this journey that you're considering. It will improve wellbeing, resilience, community resilience, and supporting local enterprise and skills. It is a very suitable project for funding. I think you'll all probably agree that Ronnie has got such a big background in making a lot of things happen in Arran, and all the conversations that he's had with the Scottish Land Fund, with Democratic Finance, with the Heritage Lottery, because that's not something I can do. They've all said this sounds like a really viable project. And at the moment I'm supporting 4 projects across Scotland, and this is the one that's got the strongest, I think, potential for success and to get the money to be at that secure. And I think it's a really, really exciting journey that you're going to embark on. As I said, what makes it a suitable project for funding? It's going to create access to services that aren't there at the moment. It's going to improve facilities for the whole community, and if not the island. It will provide the basis for a stronger rural economy, between room hire, events, the enterprise, the hospitality, training opportunities, etc. What I will say, this group's, this collection of people trustees have had gone through this process with a very big responsible handling of their governance, risk management. Democratic Finance, or what was Community Shares Scotland, will take my business plan and then they pay for it and will turn it into what they call a shares perspective, and then shares can be launched, the perspective is created, and it's very clear, it's laid out what will happen in year 1, year 2, year 3, etc., what the costs are. So, and as Ronnie said, if the big, there is the issue that if it goes back on the market on the 11th of December, but I do think the possibility of a proposal or going to the owner and saying, look, and one of the community benefit societies I opened the doors of in Arran, that's exactly what they did. They went to the local council and said, look, give it to us for a year and we'll prove that this is something the community wants. And I think that's probably going to be your best kind of solution to going back on the market, being privately bought and demolished, is if we can approach the owner with a proposal and would agree that you may have to do a crowdfunder to commit to either paying a lease or commit to running it, going through the process and then take it off the market for a year. So that might be one of the ways to do this. I think funders do favour the risk management. As I say, the business plan is robust, the financial aspects have been well thought through. There's a lot of stakeholders and partnerships to be set up. A lot of the people on this board are involved very much in the island in lots of aspects of economic planning and commitment to community resilience. So local ownership, enabling local solutions. So a strong community banking is required, a phased realistic plan, which again is coming to fruition through the business plan and just all the things that these guys have done in the lead up to this meeting. So the phases will be acquisition, stabilisation, initial delivery and growth. And this, so community ownership is not something that happens overnight, it's a long journey, but this is a journey that I think is very valid and will be supported by, as I say, there's nobody said to Ronnie, and I've also spoken to all of these, not spoken to the Heritage Lottery, but I've spoken to Democratic Finance and the Scottish Land Fund, and they've all been so behind this project. It's an ideal project. So, closing, for me, this project is based and rooted in a community need to save this building for economic resilience, community empowerment, all the things that make a community business really successful and valid, and it also aligns with local and national priorities as well, which is again another big thing that funders are looking to help with. And it demonstrates a realistic financial and very much a social return. So I think that's all I wanted to say, but if anyone had any questions, it's really lovely to see you all, and I'm really excited, and that's why I came up this Saturday to come, because I do think this is a really great project. It's got so much potential for lots of amazing things to happen, and I think you've got a really great collection of people that are leading this for you. So.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Possibly no background with a brand and all the rest of it. I also served on the tourist board for quite many years. You're probably aware of the 450,000 visitors that Arran gets each year. Only about 160,000 of them actually stay over. The balance effectively are classified as day trippers, which probably include us going shopping. But anyway, the principle is that in actual fact there's still £76 million in tourism pounds comes to Arran each year, and these figures are a couple of years old in actual fact. We're hoping, and I've used the italics, that CalMac will give us a sustainable service, and that in effect we won't have the disruptions that have affected us over the last few years. But in essence, the business planning shows that a tariff structure making us very, very, what's the word? Very fair priced, put it that way. And the occupancy rates that are achieved throughout the island, and I'm even, if you include La Mache as the nearest competition, if you like, it's amazing actually now just what is achieved in the way of occupancy. Remember in the 80s, not only were interest rates, we were paying 17% in max, which I'm glad to see interest rates are now less than half of that. But we also had to contend with a 15-week season. That was it. Effectively, Arran shut, and visitors didn't come, etc., etc. And that was by the end of September, never mind the end of October. I'm glad to be able to say maybe our crannies had something to do with it. The season in Arran is now 30 to 35 weeks, and therefore the potential for a hotel such as we're describing effectively is very realistic. It's very realistic, it can wash its face and potentially make money. Where it wouldn't do it is if we were having to borrow all this money to both buy it and or do it up. The fact that we've potentially got access to free money, to grants, and only have to effectively find 10% makes it a completely different ballgame. Anyway, again, I'm rambling.
Yeah.
I would like to add my thanks, especially to Donna who made the extra long trip, but for you guys coming out on missing your, what is it, Lamlash?
Santa Sparkle.
Santa's, whatever. It's all.
Thank you. So,
Thanks, man.
thank you. I just wanted to, we do also, as well as people signing up just now, I think actually 99% of you have signed up to become a member. We'd really appreciate it if you went away and thought about your relatives that are registered to vote in the village, that maybe, or your neighbours, that maybe don't know about this, and you might be prepared to spread the word and just say how important it is for us to actually get the ball rolling even further than we have anyway, is by getting our membership. We need really about 100 more people in the next week is the reality. So we're about halfway there, but we could really do with, and obviously I'm preaching to the converted here, but if you'd go away and help boost those numbers, that would be fantastic. And we also need people that are prepared to volunteer and join in this process, become part of it, and and we also need people to comment and have their say on the exact proposals of what goes on inside the building, but that can be at a much later date. Any questions from anyone? Anyone brave enough? Yes, Mr. Brookings.
Is the current owner aware of our potential interest in the property?
We have certainly made an effort. I tried phoning a mobile number and messaging it.
Donna has tried as well.
Personally,
I've texted and also contacted the London auction house who just said, what are you bidding? We're not getting anywhere, but I'm fairly confident nothing will happen on the 11th of December. But I do feel that the panic stage we've entered into, and that he'll listen to anything that we have to offer.
I think a proposal, we've all just tried to contact him, but I think maybe a proposal of what we're proposing to do, if we email that, it might pick up his interest and then we might get a response. So I think that's probably the next task, isn't it, to see.
But you mentioned, I think, a price of, he paid 304,000 and it's a guide price of 275.
Well, it's a starting guide, isn't it?
Yeah, he's obviously looking for offers over that.
Surely, yeah.
Which, if you take the Lapranza in, went to 440.
I mean, I'm looking at it as a magnificent building. I mean, when you talk about the heritage of it, I'd hate to see something like that go, but the worrying thing is it might well go if somebody like that gets their hands on it. And it's, to me, I'm not in that business, but it looks to me like a very profitable site for development at that kind of price.
That's our fear, David, to be honest. And as I say, I don't see it building anything that would...
I mean, there's a real reality is that there's, I don't think any of it's listed, as far as I know.
It's not listed. It's
so what but then also we're potentially not wanting to make trouble for ourselves, and by getting it listed. We shouldn't really be standing in the way of progress, and to a certain like if somebody wanted to buy it and develop it as a hotel or something that the community felt was an asset to the village, I don't think we're necessarily trying to stand in the way of that. What we don't want to see is it getting bought and demolished, which would just be a waste, and we don't need more, luxury accommodation for holiday homes, anyway, and it's probably never going to be affordable housing just because of the nature of it. So I suppose that would be a different fight to be had if somebody did buy it and did put in planning for demolition. That would be and again, having a membership that is focused on it would be quite a powerful tool to approach the planners with and say there's no way that we'd be prepared to stand for that.
Okay, thanks.
Vin.
in the timeline that you're currently creating, when do you expect to have results from the surveys on the building, so respects to how much work needs done?
It's like everything that's involved with grant applications. I have to lodge it by the 30th of November. I will not have the answer till the 26th of January, but the surveys must be complete and logged by the 31st of March. So in other words, March is the big key date in that respect. Obviously we require access for all these surveys, so Sam's going to have to start talking to us at some point. As I say, well, actually I spoke to Neil Young the other day. Did I mention that already? Neil went round with Sam in May, and effectively Neil's report to me the other day was, I think I put him off. Basically, you're just kind of highlighting the issues. But he did say that he got the feeling that it might be proposed as an immigrants hotel and or a drug rehab centre, which I'm not making any comment against them, but I'm not sure that's what the community would necessarily want. That at least would be protecting the asset, which is, I think, what we're all about at this stage. Protect the asset, bring it back into a useful property within the village.
I think if the scale of the work is a concern for you and the investment, I think, I mean, we are just working from what people have said, like Neil, I don't know if Neil put a figure on it for Ronnie, but I think Struan, when he looked around, said, well, I mean, it's what, 2 million. There was a Dutch consortium that looked at it when the Butler family owned it, and they went away, did their sums and came back and said, we think it's probably 3 million for us to do, and that's too big a project for us from operating from Holland, you know, so we're kind of feeling it somewhere between those figures. Basically 2 and 3 million is kind of what we're kind of working at without having any definite
the Heritage Fund package that we're aiming at is not the National Lottery Heritage Fund normal budget, which goes up to 10 million, which effectively is for heritage projects that are going to create museums, art galleries, other heritage centres. The Heritage Fund we're going after, which goes up to 5 million, provides money to save buildings of note effectively, and then they're happy that that building then becomes a business in order to sustain itself in the future. So it's quite a specific fund that, again, we tick all the boxes.
What's the talking about like almost like two parallel routes? I totally love the idea of turning it into whatever it's going to do. What power does is this something different? What power does the community have as a village in terms of planning in order to sort of say effectively to somebody, this isn't going to be anything else other than, you know, actually not going to get planning permission to demolish it and houses. I mean, is there a way that this organisation or the community in general can make that very well known to anybody who's going to potentially purchase it? Do you know what I mean? Is there a kind of almost like a warning? Nobody's coming near this unless you're going to do something.
Yeah.
So literally with the planners and that's it.
I think it's really publicising the fact so that anybody kind of, you know, if there's articles or whatever written about it, people researching the property might suddenly go, oh, you know, there's something going on here that I maybe, you know, that I'm going to have to contend with, rather than just, oh, I can buy that and knock it down and it's got to be worth 500 grand after I've paid 300 for it. Do you know what I mean? Rather than that. We definitely can go to the planners. Planners are, you know, are very, I would say, amenable, particularly with the state of the McLaren and their inability to really do anything about it, and I think hopefully some regrets of theirs. So I think they will be very open to the community's opinion on what should happen in Whiting Bay to prevent anything like that happening again. So I think we could, and practically, I think we absolutely can do things to stop it getting just demolished without, you know, but I think, you know, having a body of support that you can literally say, look, we represent 200 people, 300 people, whatever it is, that are against this or for that, I think that means something.
How would a large banner in the front saying hands off Cooridoon would help?
John Casey could paint
I was
something.
going to say, in England, we've got a process where if there's a building of value that the community really wants, they can actually stop people from doing things to it, but it's not the same in Scotland. But at Bridgeend Farmhouse, the community took, as I say, the council to court to say, you promised you would give us that building for community use. And so I think that the more people that sign up, I mean, if you have over 100 people already and you think by the end of the year you can get up to a third of this community want that, that is a huge percentage. That is a really big positive thing.
I think there is actually a route to having a note of interest, and you can, you know, but I think that's possibly as much work as what we're doing just now in terms of like a legal document to get to the guy that's not responding to any emails to say that, you know, the community have lodged a note of interest, so we've got the first right of refusal if you sell, but we're not really at the point of having the money to actually buy. We don't know what the future costs are yet. We don't, you know, we haven't got proposals, we haven't got a supported share offer to do, so we're not really, you know, so he can say, yeah, well, you can have first right of refusal. How much money have you got? You know, what's your offer? And at the moment it's nothing. So
I guess what I'm saying is the council stroke planners stroke whoever's in charge of all this.
I think they would help
Are
us.
they aware of the feelings of the community that, like, you know what, you can't just rubber stamp this and go bum 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 Dave for
No, I mean,
bored, so he's going
I've got a meeting with Neil McIntyre
But also-
on Monday morning at 11 a.m.
2 weeks ago there was 4 of us.
Especially with the turnout we've had today, I think
2 weeks ago there was only 4 of us in the society that can you know, claim to speak on behalf of. Today there's over 100 people in the society that we can claim to speak on behalf of, and hopefully that'll be much more like 50% of the village residents.
Yeah, Tom, I think it's relevant to say we're the interim board. I mean, the minute this thing really starts to tick over, it will probably be some sort of general meeting.
Well, September is it? Oh, September next year we've got.
Well, I think by September next year we've got to have an AGM, but I think prior to that we're probably going to certainly have a series of public meetings. And it may be that the 6 names that we've got at the moment, as I say, can be expanded. We don't want everything designed by committee, but at the end of the day, you know, I think we want to make sure we're representative of the community, and consequently, as I say, each year there will be the possibility of changing and or electing new board members.
Mrs. Ironson? Barbara, did you want to?
Yeah, I was going to say, if the important part is to get more people, could you improve your social media and maybe try and find somebody to do that for you? And no, I'm not volunteering. I do think that's quite important. I think you need it, because if people don't know and they don't understand, they presume, not necessarily.
So basically want one of those "We Want You" posters with a big hat on it.
Oh, David,
White Bay needs you.
yeah. So actually, I mean, someone that's prepared to take on social media would be amazing. It does, you know, it doesn't have to be a massively onerous task. It's just.
We did ask Fraser, by the way, but he said he's a bit too busy.
But yeah, social media is really.
But I do think you need it.
Yeah.
Even if you just set up something on the page, just a place where people can find anything.
Yeah.
Yep, good point, Martin.
If you know anybody that might want to get involved, or a social media person, it's not. The important thing about something like Facebook is ensuring that you are attached to a lot of other Facebooks that are relevant to what you're doing. So whoever took it on, if there was anyone that was interested, I'd be more than happy to have a conversation about what makes things work and how to.
I think at the moment as well, that because we're very much like Waiting Bay focused, I think like it's going to be way more important once we kind of open, you know, if we get to the point of having a supporter share issue and we need to promote it beyond the village, it'll be even more critical at that point as well, I think. Sarah, you want to?
No, I just from speaking to other people in the village and the island as well, I think some people are hesitant to join because they're not exactly sure what it is that's going to happen with the building. So because I know there was a meeting I wasn't able to attend back in January, and there was a lady from Scotland did a report, and there was lots of things coming out of there, like people asking, thinking we maybe need the sort of budget accommodation, and there's lots of different ideas. Have those ideas kind of formed your central business plan, and would people be able to see like a draft of the business plan?
Yeah, sure. So I think that, as I say, we've kind of put together like our own personal ones, kind of looking to see what we think would make sense and would be viable, and whether we thought it was viable. But that's not really with access to enough information, really. So I know that a lot of people think it could be much more like hostel, lots of beds, can be a much more viable business model than looking for high end. I think at the moment we are looking at just being something that would be attractive within the market, really, and assuming that everybody needs en-suite accommodation. Beyond that, I don't think we haven't finalised anything. So the business plan we're talking about is not actually what you might think of as, what you'd maybe want to take to the bank and say is a business plan. It's much more a project plan.
Yeah. Arran started as a 14-bedroom guest house. It now in the high season, there's 400 guests, turns over £10 million and employs 180 people. It started as a 14-bedroom guest house. So I'm not suggesting we're going to go anywhere along that line, but
anyway, so it's open to consultation. I think we all have to produce, something that we think is feasible given, costings, work it all out, and once we get to that stage, really, produce an actual, here's a room rate, here's the number of rooms, here's a room rate, here's what we're going to do with the restaurant, the bar, here's what we're going to do with this room, we're going to lease it, here we're going to have Eco Savvy in this room, we're going to, that sort of thing. So that all needs done, and it's not really for us to just say, here it is, that's what you're having. I mean, it's absolutely for everybody to say what they feel it should have.
Because I think for me that's a bit of information that's missing for me is the community consultation bit, and I know there was a meeting which I wasn't at, so that was people just be question marking because I thought it could be this, she thought it could be that, and it's bringing all of that together.
Beyond it being an hotel with service, rooms, en-suite rooms and bar and restaurant, there is no fixed plan. Realistically, it will take hours and hours and hours of somebody and lots of people's lives to put that together, and beyond me doing it for myself to satisfy myself that there was a plan there that worked financially, it's not a great return, particularly not on a £3 million investment. You're talking about a 5% return potentially, which is much better when it's only 10% of community money.
And Tom, the initial objective is really just to get to buy the Cooridoon and protect the building, and then work on the basis of what it's going to be.
But you will have a say as a member. You will not have you will have an awareness, and you can put out there, and sure, you can object. You literally can vote on stuff as a member.
Okay, sorry, I was just going to add, right, so having run several community businesses, as the current trustees are saying, what they've thought about right now is acquisition. But the whole point of a community business is that there's transparency, that the community are and can get involved. So I suspect a wee bit further down the line, so for example, one of the things that could happen quite quickly, and I think getting back in touch with democratic finance to find out how quickly we can turn around a shares issue or launch, to try and build up the momentum. And we need to find out realistically, and I think putting a proposal to the current owner to say, I think that sounds like the best idea, to put the whole sale on hold for a year to prove that there is a community need. And then that's when we really have to get everybody in the community to come and help and say, what do you think this needs to be? And that is the whole point of a community benefit society or a community business. So there'll probably be I would suggest focus groups. They might even get a wee bit of funding to get a development officer one day a week that would actually go out and do proper community mapping, talk properly to lots of people and get lots of more input into how it goes. At the moment, it's a very brave stage to go, actually, we don't want this building to be gone, we don't want to get knocked down. It's got a lot of, and it's interesting how it is the Heritage Lottery, not the National Lottery, that would back this, and that's because of the age of the building. But as a community asset, there's, as I said earlier, it is a long journey, and there's going to be lots and lots of opportunities for the community to come and basically help devise what that looks like, if you see what I mean. I don't think these guys want to buy the building and make a plan and not include, they know that's not how it goes. And you've got people that are very experienced in your board of trustees that have worked with the community a lot over the years, that have been on community councils, that have been involved in all aspects of the community. So you've got a really big team of people that know how important it is as well. So that's all I'll say is important, but I think this is just the very starting point. I mean, how involved the community gets is really up to the community as well. But there'll be lots and lots of opportunities for the community to actually help shape what happens there, 100%.
I think going back to Barbara's point just about social media as well, like at the moment you're just trying to get so many members, so in quite a short space of time, so there's obviously, social media is a great thing, but there's a lot of people in the village who are of the older generation that don't use social media, and this is a good time of year again in the village that there's a lot of events coming up that might be quite good. I mean, that's great having the laptop sitting here, so somebody could come in, give their pound and take their details, that's signed up. So it's maybe quite a good thing at the events coming up, like this, the Christmas market, Christmas tree, if you've got somebody with a bit of time to come and, I mean, literally badger somebody as they walk in and get their pound, get their name down, because at the moment that is what you want. You want to get people's names down, you want to get their pound, obviously further along the line you want more than a pound from them, but at the moment I would use this time of year and use things in the village to get the people that are maybe, as I say, social media is great, but not for certain people and not for the older generation, of which there's quite a lot of in the village.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you book the market if you book a table or a half a table for Saturday, Sunday, I'll tell you in a minute.
Well, it costs us more than we'll make for the market.
I think maybe you could badger the whole that they might give you a wee space. I would like to think.
Something else. So it is, Christmas market is 11 till 3, and if you phone Sandy on 700 411, you could book one. Oh yeah.
I think what you suggest
Phone Sandy and get the hall.
really to turn up at events. The other thing is, I think, producing some flyers that go through the homes, or even a membership form with a brief description attached to it. But this is where more volunteers will be needed, and if people really want to help these guys spread the word, please come forward, to have people go, yeah, well, I've got 3 streets I would put those envelopes in, but printing costs and a membership form and a reason why to fill it in could be achieved quite quickly, but again, they need help to do that. It's a community that's going to make this work and not just...
Thank you, Sandy.
Surely the crux of the business, and I think Ronnie mentioned it earlier on, is we haven't even spoken to the guy who owns this and how quickly he wants to realise his capital out of the building. He's going to be under a lot of pressure too, as we are, as Ronnie's saying, with time to get all these parts done. He's got, council tax and all that other thing breathing down his neck. So he's going to do it. Is there any way we can actually get somebody in, if we can raise some money to get 10%?
Well, the crowdfunding exercise starts today.
Yes.
Yeah. That's not, because we're now, your pound's great, numbers are the big thing, membership numbers, the money, that's not bringing in money for the way ahead, but yeah, the crowdfunding, anybody that's willing to donate. What I will say as Secretary is, if this programme works, these donations could be converted to shares. I can't, it's bad practice apparently to try and issue shares without proper prospectus. So I'm not proposing that, but that doesn't stop us starting the crowdfunding exercise. And basically,
I don't know what we need to raise. I mean,
well, I would say the initial target is 10% of the asking price.
Is there a website you can just go to?
yes,
there is.
WBCBS.
Just WCBS. Sorry, WBCBS. Fighting Bay Community Benefits Society.
I mean, Ronnie's a sort of naive sort of situation. If we're looking for 10% of, say, 300,000, £30,000, if we all put in something like £500 each, and we get to that point, and it's not accepted, would there be a return of that sort of money back?
Well, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the whole project revolves around it. If we were agreed as a community to pay that as a deposit, then we could lose it. And as I say, that any share, you know, there is a risk element obviously involved, and everybody has to be fully aware of that. But if we can, the lease is obviously expenditure that's non-recoverable. The deposit could be set against the purchase price, so it's not lost. But if we can't raise the balance of the purchase price, it will do.
But the benefit of that would be you could then appease the guy who's trying to sell it.
But to my mind, this is the way forward.
It's the way forward.
We say that we're willing to pay a deposit, take it off the market, give us 12 months.
And give us 12 months if
I
he's
do
happy.
think that's probably going to be the most viable. And I think democratic finance, we could approach them and find out how long it will take them to turn around the shares issue. Because they pay for the printing, they spend time on it, they create very lovely glossy brochures. So we could get a time scale on that and let the community know how fast we can launch shares as well. But I think a crowdfunder would be, but I think the owner needs a proposal and I'll just send him rather than...
Assuming that you do raise 10% and take it off the market for a year, who then pays the £1,500 a month council tax?
Well, we need to get a building warrant on it ASAP, and it's calculated daily the rates bill. So we would literally need to get a building warrant like really in place before we actually took it on, and then we have no liability.
There's another one, Tom. Not-for-profit companies get another level of relief. So we'd be doing everything within our power to make North Asia back off and give us the maximum amount of release. We'd get 6 months free, and then thereafter, as a community business, not for profit, basically we would then qualify for other things. But you're absolutely right. Once we own it, we'll be paying out.
I'm going to say I'm not particularly keen on doing anything that's going to put anybody's contributions at risk at all. Frankly, you know, like I think we need to make sure we've got all our ducks in a row before we actually start asking people for serious money. I think that there's lots of things we can do. Like we're going to have a night at the races, you know, just to check out charity fundraisers. We can do things like organise raffles and a volunteers auction, that sort of thing, just to raise a bit of capital that you all maybe be happy to participate in as general fundraising in the village goes.
Our first disagreement. We'll take anything at the moment, donations. If we can find 100 people to give us 250 quid, we'll take it. Let's not kid ourselves. What we will do is put it in a reserve account that effectively it can only be used for a set purpose, and that would not be as an overhead. It would have to be towards the acquisition. So no, please feel free if you've got 100 maids or 50 maids for 500 even better. We'll take it as of now. We will put it aside, church and home. Okay.
Can I just say before we finish up, and it won't take long because I know you're keen to finish, Ian and I kind of do what we're told within this benefit society, but the three people in front of you, Tom, Donna and particularly Ronnie, the amount of time and effort these guys have put in to try and set this up and ultimately save this building, I think the vote of thanks should be given to them. Really.
I think, David, you just beat me to it. I was about to say, on behalf of Whitby Improvements, I think you and Ian need to be included. I think there's been a huge amount of work that went in from all of you involved, and it's obviously all for the benefit of the village. So I think you're all deserve the thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is that all right, Donna?
There's lots of membership forms if you want to take them away for your friends and families and neighbours.
Tom, these have all been
well done. You can keep them.
Oh, can I? In my booklet.
If you're right, just email me the
update, I will certainly do that. I'm going to add some more names first, like my kids.
The Christmas tree lighting is the next event, next Saturday. I mean, if you've got somebody that will sit, Christmas will be like long. But,